Let's talk about reading today. For those of you that have kids that are struggling to read, usually you can break down the dysfunction into three categories. The first is decoding. So that's the ability that the person has to see the word and know what the word is, and to know what sounds are associated with the letters in that word. Okay, that's the decoding piece. The second piece is comprehension, which is usually after seeing the word, then the brain assigns meaning to that word based on your memory, usually. But there's a third part, and that third part is integrating decoding with comprehension. So now let me tell you a story. When I was in about first grade, so I would have been around 6, I remember having this experience. I was doing a reading assessment with one of my teacher aides, and we were reading a book, and I can remember the picture in the book that I was reading. It was a picture of a playground. I think there was a slide and a ball and maybe something else. And then beneath the picture, across both pages, was one sentence. And I remember being able to read that sentence and decode each of the words in that sentence pretty well. Probably for my age. Probably decent decoding skills, okay? But in that assessment, the teacher asked me to tell her what I was reading about. And I had no idea. All I could do was think about the picture that I saw, and that was the only reference that I had to what the words meant. In other words, my brain had almost zero capacity to assign meaning to the words that I had decoded. All right. And I remember doing other assessments like this, but this one really stood out to me because the teacher had me read the same sentence 3 times. And after each time she would ask me, okay, what was that talking about? What does that mean? And I remember each time not being able to give her an answer. It was the first time I remember being really frustrated with myself, and at the same time quite stressed. To the point that it started, I think that was a moment that started to create a reading aversion, because I started to realize something was wrong when I was reading. Okay. Now I know other kids, and I've seen this before, where they have what I consider is the opposite. I was working with a little boy in a school a few years ago who had all of his teachers baffled because he couldn't decode. I mean he could decode well enough that he could eventually tell you what the word was, what it said. But he was far better at telling you what all the words meant. His comprehension was way past his ability to decode, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you think about reading, most people's minds think, well, you have to know the word to know what it means. Well, his mind didn't think like that. He could tell you the meaning of a passage, a paragraph, and not know half of the words, or not be able to say half of the words in that paragraph. Now the third, I'll go back to a story of my own. So after I had my brain worked on when I was 16 with the same stuff that I want to show you guys. But after that, I noticed that my brain had the ability to switch between decoding and comprehension. So I couldn't quite do it at the same time. I think my brain had the potential to learn how to do that, but it wasn't there yet. So the way I realized this was I would be reading or decoding, and I would read a few words, and then I would pause and let my comprehension side catch up. And it was literally like a toggle in my brain where one side of my brain was processing, and then I could feel this little switch and I would start understanding what I had read, and then I would keep going and I would decode, and then my brain would switch and I would start to comprehend. Over time, within about a year and a half, a year to a year and a half period of time, my brain developed the skill to be able to decode and comprehend at the same time. Okay, and that was after I had my brain work done. But a lot of you might wonder, well, how do I know which one my child is struggling with? Because sometimes kids can't just express and tell you what's wrong, right? So this is an easy way to know if their issue is with decoding or comprehension, and it works most of the time. Every once in a while you're gonna have a kid who stumps you because they can somehow do both, but they don't do it like everyone else. But this is how you do it. Find a book that your child, you're pretty sure the child knows how to pronounce all the words. So go through the book first and make sure that it's on their reading level, okay? Or close to their reading level, all right? Have them read just one paragraph forward and mark or write down on another piece of paper all the errors that they made. So what you might do is print or copy, put that page in a copier and copy that page so you have a page, and as they're reading it, you make little marks and track what mistakes they're making as they read, okay? Those will usually manifest as decoding dysfunctions, okay? So you can pick those out. But then you're gonna add a second part of the test where you have them read a different passage backward, okay? They're gonna read each of the words as they are, but they're gonna read them in a backwards order. So starting with the word right before the period and work back the other way, okay? Now why would we have them do that? Well, this is why. When you read backwards, there's no comprehension associated with the words, or very little. Okay, the words don't have to make any sense when you read them backwards. In fact, for a lot of things, it eliminates the meaning altogether because it doesn't make any sense. So the child's brain then doesn't have to think about what does this mean. They're only focused on decoding. Okay, so if they read backwards and they do it well or better than when they were reading forward, then they actually have good decoding skills, okay? If they fumbled around, if they had trouble with a few words or a few sounds their brain didn't recognize right off the bat, then you've got some decoding gaps that you can work on, all right? But again, if they read backward well, you know, pretty fluently, and don't make a lot of mistakes, they don't skip words, then the issue is not the decoding. The issue is either the ability to comprehend or the ability to comprehend while they're decoding, okay? So, decoding, we can categorize into right brain thinking, all right? It's more on the recall side of our brain, the right brain, the Gestalt brain. and comprehension is on the left side, the logic brain, and that's where you get your meaning. So reading requires both sides of the brain. So if they're okay at decoding, then they're able to access those right side categories, those Gestalt categories of processing. If they're good at comprehension, they're accessing the logic side, okay? But that's one of the easiest ways to tell, is just have the child read backwards. And that will reveal a lot about their ability to decode, and whether or not decoding is an issue or whether comprehension is an issue. Go try it, okay? If you guys have any more questions or comments, post them in the comments below. And coming up, hopefully within the next few days, I'm gonna start posting some technique videos on how to do the brain work that I've been alluding to. So we'll start working on that. Okay, see ya.